The office corridor seemed larger than ever, as if the silence stretched the walls into a labyrinth. To the left, a sea of scripts piled in unstable columns. To the right, framed posters of past films that no longer weighed on the wall. They weighed on him. Each title, each signed paper, each gaze from characters he had once lived seemed to ask, what now? Keanu Reeves, in a time-worn black jacket with hands sunk into his pockets, listened to Erica for the 10th time that day. The exhaustion didn't just come from filming. John Wick Chapter 4 had just wrapped up months of intense shooting, marked by strenuous choreographies and almost military training, but from something deeper, invisible, the need to disappear from the noise for a while. "Boss, they want an answer by Friday," Erica said, holding a folder filled with pages scribbled with colorful post-its. Her voice, firm as always, now carried a hint of anxiety. "2 studios have already agreed to rewrite scenes for you. The third is offering profit participation. I really think you should start reading." Keanu offered a small smile, not of mockery, but of weariness. The smile of a man who had lived many lives on screen and yet felt tired of roles. "I'm tired, Erica. I'm not a kid anymore." His voice was low, but filled with an honesty that brought down any argument. "And seriously, I've read scripts my whole life. Today I'm just not in the mood, really. Let's leave it for next week. Maybe." That's when Tom, the assistant who always seemed to appear from where there were no doors, raised an eyebrow behind them. "Next week, boss?" The question came suddenly, almost startling both of them. "Good heavens, Tom," Erica clutched her chest. "You just appear out of nowhere." "Honestly," Keanu laughed, that short, unpretentious laugh that disarmed even the greatest tension. "Tom, get the Harley ready. I'm going out for a ride. The day is beautiful." "Boss, but what about the scripts?" Erica insisted, almost pleading. "What do I tell the studios? And the talk shows? Everyone wants to talk to you. Help me out here, please." Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder, the gesture calm but definitive. "You've got this, Erica. You always have." He hugged her firmly, like someone saying goodbye indefinitely. "Take care of the fort. I'll be back in 2 days, maximum." 2 days? She widened her eyes. "You're crazy, Keanu, please." But the John Wick actor heard nothing more. His heart was already elsewhere. He grabbed his helmet, crossed the silent parking lot like someone crossing a border, and mounted his Harley Davidson, his old companion. The engine awoke with a deep growl, like a road friend who asks no questions, just says, "Shall we go?" And he went. The city fell behind like a memory fading in the rear-view mirror. The studios were left behind. Months of heavy filming vanished in the reflection. The Harley devoured the asphalt, mile after mile, as Keanu felt the wind whip his face, and freedom open before him like a song without a chorus. He took Interstate 40, a highway that cuts through the Mojave Desert to Arizona, an arid and immense path, marked by endless straightaways and horizons that seemed to never end. The asphalt stretched like a dark sheet, streaked by sparks of the setting sun that transformed the desert into a golden canvas. With each kilometer, less noise, less rush, less have to. And there went the most improbable hero of recent times, not after glory but after silence. But not everything would be joy that night. The dashboard indicated what would soon become a drama. The red light blinked once, twice. First, it was just a warning. Then an insistent, serious, inevitable signal. Low oil. And then the first omen. On the dashboard, the digital clock jumped on its own and displayed 13:03. The number glowed for an instant, static, as if it had been programmed for that moment. A low, metallic hum ripped through the silence coming from the radio, which was off. Soon after, the headlights flickered once, like an eye closing to the world. In the same second, the engine coughed, sputtered, groaned, and died. Silence. The oil light blinked faster and faster, as if marking the beat of a countdown. Keanu slowed down and pulled over to the dusty shoulder of Route 66, already in the arid region of Amboy, California, where the desert is only rock, sand, and wind. It was a desolate spot, the kind of place where loneliness has physical weight. He dismounted the bike, put down the kickstand with a mechanical gesture, and slumped onto the Harley's seat like someone accepting an inevitable sentence. He picked up his cell phone, tried to call Tom. No signal, not a single bar, nothing but the cold screen. "Just what I needed," he murmured, letting out a tired sigh. Then he raised his voice, as if talking to an invisible audience. "Of course, You win, universe. He lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and watched the horizon. To the left, only sun-scorched mountains. To the right, miles of straight road disappearing into the shimmering heat on the asphalt. Above, the cloudless, merciless sky hammered down on his head. It was like being in the center of a stage where there was no audience, only silence. Time dragged on. 2 hours passed. A few more cigarettes burned between his fingers. Keanu began tapping his foot to the rhythm of his own impatience, but he didn't give in to frustration. He wasn't that type. He had always believed in the power of the universe, in the idea that things happen for a reason. He knew he wouldn't be stuck there forever. He also knew with the same conviction that his time had not yet come. If he were to die, he thought, it would have been at high speed, on some treacherous curve, not on a forgotten roadside. This here, he laughed to himself, shaking his head, this is ammunition for Erica. She'll repeat it for months. I told you so, boss. I told you so. The laugh faded into a nostalgic breath. Erica. It had been 15 years since she had appeared in his life. She was only 18 when she asked him for a job, still in a West Hollywood coffee shop, trying to help her mother pay the bills. Keanu, touched by that fragility mixed with courage, hired her without a second thought. Since then, Erica had become more than an assistant. She was the guardian of his professional life, organizing schedules, mediating negotiations, protecting him from the invisible pressures of the industry. Her mother, Marta, had also entered his life, taking care of the house, clothes, meals, as if Keanu were a surrogate son. Between them, practical life was always in order. He didn't have to worry about anything but being Keanu. And then there was Tom, the right-hand man who preferred grease to papers, responsible for taking care of the motorcycles, cars, and eccentricities related to music, sports, and events. Keanu's true passion had always been there, in the roar of engines, in conversations with musicians, in the smell of gasoline mixed with the road. Cinema was work. This, yes, was life. On that Route 66 shoulder, between cigarettes and memories, Hollywood's most improbable actor reminded himself of what he always wanted to be, just someone like everyone else. Without ostentation, without clicks, without spotlights. Just a man, a broken motorcycle, and the road. But the desert still had plans for him. Keanu looked at the motorcycle's clock again, 1:00 p.m. sharp. But something didn't make sense. For hours, the dashboard had insisted on showing 13:03. What the hell? He murmured, running a hand through his hair. The dashboard indicated an oil failure. But when he bent down and carefully examined the Harley, nothing. No leaks, no sign of a real failure. Tom would never let something like that slip. That only increased the feeling that the universe was playing a trick. He took off his black jacket and threw it over the seat, sighing. The desert sun didn't just burn. It seemed to converse with him, whispering a silent message. Patience. Wait. It was then that the still desert air broke. A deep metallic sound rose in the distance. An engine. First, a muffled growl, then clearer. Keanu squinted against the scorching sun and saw headlights cutting through the mirage on the road, like two blades shining in the heat. An old tow truck approached, coughing a tired iron blues. The truck stopped beside the Harley, its brakes hissing softly. The driver's window slid down and a firm but young voice sounded, "Need a hand, buddy?" Keanu approached, resting his hands on the open window glass. Inside, a lean young man in his early 20s, worn leather jacket, dust-covered boots. In the pocket of his overalls, embroidered in red, "Red Joe." Keanu managed a tired smile. "Definitely, my friend. I need to get this beauty to the nearest garage. Can you help me?" The young man leaned forward, brown eyes shining with a mix of confidence and innocence. "Sure, just two things. The nearest garage is about 130 miles from here, and the price is $700 plus gas." Keanu laughed, relieved to finally see a way out. "Deal." Eager to get out of here, Joe smiled back, a sincere, almost old-fashioned smile, like those you no longer see in big cities. He got out of the tow truck with firm steps and helped Keanu load the Harley onto the platform. The vehicle, though aged, had an unmistakable shine, bright red, with chrome gleaming under the setting sun, as if it had just rolled off the factory floor. On the door, hand-drawn, a small logo showed the truck itself, accompanied by the inscription, "Joe's Towing." As he got into the passenger seat, Keanu was enveloped by the smell of light, polished leather, contrasting with the impeccable retro finish of the dashboard. The tow truck seemed suspended in time, as if it hadn't lived a single day of wear. Keanu ran his hand over the upholstery and asked, "What year is this truck?" Joe adjusted the steering wheel proudly. "It's a 1995 Ford F800, my baby." Keanu raised his eyebrows, impressed. "It's very well preserved. I take care of it like family. In fact, I call it Paul," Joe said, lightly tapping the dashboard. "Named after my older brother, who raised me along with my sister, Virginia. We were orphaned when I was 10, Paul was 12, and she was only 5. Our parents died in an accident on this same road. Since then, Paul took care of us as best he could. I owe him everything. That's why the truck bears his name." The silence that followed was heavy. Keanu, touched, bowed his head in respect. "I'm sorry, Joe." The young man sighed, but his smile remained serene. "Thanks, but don't worry, it's been a long time. In a way, we're doing well." Keanu nodded, feeling something inexplicable in those words. It was as if there was a hidden weight behind the young man's lightness. A secret. "I'm glad to hear that. And if I can help with anything, let me know." Joe extended his hand, firm, a little colder than Keanu expected. "Joe Fisher. Nice to meet you." Keanu took his hand, feeling that strange temperature difference, and replied with his characteristic calm, "Keanu Reeves." They both smiled. Two strangers, two roads, about to share much more than a simple rescue. Keanu settled into the passenger seat, still intrigued by that old radio that emitted static and snippets of forgotten songs, as if guided by a station that no longer existed. The clock hand on the dashboard again read 13:03, a repetition that was no coincidence. The tow truck moved smoothly, with a metallic rumble that seemed to blend with the sound of the wind in the desert. Joe didn't look at Keanu. His eyes were fixed on the infinite straight line of the road. "You know," he said, with the calm of someone who had carried many silences, "the city teaches you to pretend you know where you're going. The desert doesn't. It just gives you the horizon and asks, 'So what?'" Keanu let out a brief, tired smile, resting his head against the cold window glass. "I have the horizon, Joe, but I lack the will to get anywhere." Joe bit the corner of his mouth, almost smiling, and retorted, "You don't lack will, Keanu. What you lack is permission. Permission not to be what they expect of you. That's different." The words hung in the air. Keanu looked up, curious, and returned the question. "What's your story, Joe?" The young man chuckled softly, like someone who had answered that many times. "Mechanic, tow truck driver, jack of all trades. People call me when everything else fails. I guess my job is to take weight off others, carry what they can't." He glanced at Keanu. "And yours?" Keanu raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "Me? I pretend lives until I almost believe them, and every now and then I forget my own in the trailer." Joe let out a short, genuine laugh. "So you're really an actor? Like, I don't know, Val Kilmer? Brad Pitt?" Keanu laughed, surprised by the reference so 90s. "Something like that," he replied, still impressed by Joe's demeanor, as if he had stopped in time. The tow truck continued slowly, but there was a strange peace in the cabin. The radio, untouched, suddenly emitted a hoarse snippet of Johnny Cash, as if the road itself had chosen the soundtrack. After another half-hour in comfortable silence, Joe took a side road. The sun began to set, tinting the sky orange and purple. That's when a building appeared ahead, lit like a pier in the middle of nowhere. A low shed with a worn sign, Red Mesa Garage. The smell of burnt oil, reheated coffee, and long nights seemed to permeate the air even before Keanu got out of the tow truck. Joe parked carefully, got out and lowered the ramp. He treated the Harley with an almost ceremonial care, like someone returning a lost dog to its owner. Inside the workshop, an old sofa sunken by time, a soda machine that seemed to have been out of order for years, and a curious wall clock. It had no numbers, only hands, stopped exactly at 13:03. Keanu frowned, observing. "Will it take long?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Joe smiled faintly, holding up two metal mugs he took from a shelf. First the talk, then the wrench. He extended one of the mugs. "Coffee?" The coffee was intentionally bad. Some places have license to be bad. It's their way of saying this is real. Joe served the mugs without ceremony, the bitter smell invading the workshop, and the two sat side by side on a workbench. Keanu responded with the simplicity of someone asking for a glass of water. "My name is Keanu Reeves. I need to talk to you about your brother." The tension that had hung in the air gave way to a heavy silence. Michael gestured for him to come in. The kitchen smelled of reheated coffee and fresh bread. Dishes dried on a rack next to the sink, and on the wall, hung in a simple frame, was a photograph of a young man smiling in a worn leather jacket. Joe. The same short smile, the same light in his eyes that Keanu remembered from the workshop in the middle of nowhere. Michael noticed Keanu's gaze fixed on the photo. He sat down, took a deep breath, and put the pieces together without Reeves needing to invent coincidences. Joe died taking a car of newlyweds. The groom passed out in the passenger seat and he didn't want to wake the guy to ask for help. He tried to take the turn alone, but the tow truck was heavier than it should have been. The man looked at the photo. His voice dropped. We found his lighter among the wreckage. It disappeared from the inventory. I never saw it again. I always thought someone had taken it. Funny, you coming here. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out the object. The lighter gleamed in the kitchen light, the same one Joe had lit for him in the desert. Michael recoiled half a step, like someone seeing an old friend enter without knocking. Anna put her hand to her mouth, unable to suppress a sob. Keanu searched for words, but his voice failed. Then he decided the whole truth was the only way. My motorcycle broke down in the desert. A young man named Joe rescued me. He spoke like your brother, laughed like your brother. He left me at a garage and disappeared. I asked them to look for him, but I only found you. Michael took a deep breath, like someone trying to put out an internal fire. His eyes welled up, but he looked away. He remained silent until a phrase escaped, almost a whisper. My daughter is Lila. She needs a transplant. The hospital said it's urgent, but we don't have insurance. We don't have funds. I'm not asking for anything. I don't even know why I'm saying this. Keanu nodded. There was no hesitation, no show, just firmness. I'll pay everything now. Michael's eyes widened. Anna put her hand to her chest. But why? Keanu looked at the lighter again, turning it slowly between his fingers. His voice came out serene, as if an old promise was being fulfilled. Because someone pulled me off the road, and because he asked me to pay it forward. The silence that followed was not empty. It was sacred. Keanu left Michael's house with his heart beating in irregular rhythms, as if the Harley's engine had transferred inside him. He drove in silence to UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles, one of the leading hospitals for pediatric transplants. The corridors were cold, long, lit by lamps that mimicked the sun but never quite warmed. That excessive white had something merciless about it. It reminded him that here, life was measured in tests, reports, and prognoses. Lila Fisher was 12 years old. She was in a reserved pediatric ward, closely monitored by a team of specialists in chronic liver failure caused by autoimmune hepatitis. Her liver had been failing for months, and the girl survived on expensive medications, restricted diets, and constant hospitalizations. A transplant was the only real chance, but without insurance, the family couldn't afford it. Keanu entered the room and found her reclining in bed, connected to an IV, but with a gaze that contradicted her fragile body. Attentive, almost mocking eyes, like those of her Uncle Joe whom he had met on the road. She wore fingerless gloves scribbled with ballpoint pen, musical notes, small hearts, a little truck drawn sideways. She didn't look at him as fans look at idols. She looked as if she already knew. Uncle Joe said you'd come. Her voice was thin but firm. Keanu felt the air thin. So he told you? Yes. I dream about him sometimes. He says, calm down, little one, the turn is ours. Lila pulled a crumpled paper from under her pillow and handed it to him. On it, a child's drawing, a red tow truck with a golden halo over the cab. In the driver's seat, a young man, messy hair, a short smile. Joe. Keanu held the drawing carefully, as if it were both compass and map. His eyes welled up. Yes, the turn is ours. He repeated, more to himself than to her. He left the hospital directly for the courtyard, dialed Erica. Arrange everything. Team, costs, stay. Don't spare anything. I want this girl alive, breathing, running again. His voice didn't tremble. It was an order. In the following days, science and faith intertwined. On the science side, surgical teams specializing in pediatric liver transplants, led by Dr. Samuel Rosen, raced against time to prepare Lila. On the faith side, Michael and Anna spent hours in the hospital chapel, while Keanu remained nearby, discreet but present. The surgery lasted 8 full hours. Every minute weighed like lead. The waiting room clock seemed not to move until a nurse appeared with moist eyes and a tired smile. Everything went well. The liver took. She'll need follow-up, but it worked. Michael collapsed in tears, suppressed sobs from someone who never allowed himself to falter. Anna hugged him tightly, both crying the kind of tears that wash away years of struggle. In the room, days later, Lila was already smiling in a new way. It was a tired smile, but full of future. Keanu entered slowly like a visitor, not a savior. He left a small wooden box on the table beside the bed. "This is from your uncle," he said simply. Inside, Joe's lighter, polished. On the side, still the original inscription, JD. On the other side, a new engraving, "Keep going." Lila touched the object with her fingertips, like someone holding an inherited secret. She didn't cry. She just smiled. "He'll know it's home," she murmured. Days later, back in Los Angeles, Erica found Keanu sitting on the office floor. Around him, 20 scripts spread out like tarot cards. He didn't seem lost, but choosing. "Any decision?" she asked, almost whispering, afraid of breaking his concentration. Keanu held up a page. "This one doesn't ask me to run, it asks me to stay. It's small, almost no one will see it, but there's a real man inside. I'm going to do this one." Erica raised her eyebrows. "And the others?" Keanu picked up another script, flipped through it quickly and set it aside. "I'll return this one with a thank you, but no. It's going to rain calls," Erica said, a little worried. Keanu chuckled softly. "Let it rain. I'll buy an umbrella." Tom entered with a steaming mug of coffee. "So, boss, do we have a new slogan for the season?" Keanu was silent for a few seconds. He thought of the desert. The clock stopped at 3:03, the red tow truck. Lila smiling with the lighter in her hand. Michael breathing a sigh of relief. He thought of Joe. "We do," he said firmly. "What is it?" Tom asked. Keanu took a sip of coffee, looked up and replied, "Less noise. More road." 10 days later, Keanu returned to the same stretch of asphalt where the engine had died. The desert looked the same, but he didn't. The sky was tinged with copper, the sun slowly setting, painting the rocks and dust with shades of ancient fire. The air was dry, but it breathed as if holding secrets. He stopped the Harley on the shoulder, turned off the engine, and let the silence fall like a curtain. He took off his helmet, closed his eyes. Sometimes the desert speaks, sometimes it sings. That day it seemed to whisper. There was no garage, no shed, no shadow of a gleaming red tow truck. Only wind, dust, and a distant echo that could be a horn, or just memory. Keanu walked to a mile marker, that worn iron lost in the landscape and unnoticed by those who rush past. He took Joe's lighter from his pocket, lit a small, stubborn flame that danced against the wind. He stood there for a second, staring at that spark as if staring at an entire universe. Then he blew it out. "Thank you, Joe," he murmured. On the Harley's dashboard, by a whim of bad contact or destiny, the clock blinked. 3:03. Keanu laughed to himself, that low laugh that comes from deep in the chest when the impossible mixes with life. "Okay, I remember." He got on the bike. For an instant too brief to be explained, he saw in the rearview mirror what he swore were headlights behind him. 2 circles of light cutting through the dust, steady, as if accompanying to ensure the road ahead was clear. He didn't look again. He didn't need to. He accelerated, slowly, not running from anything. He was running with someone. Weeks later, already on the set of a small, almost intimate film, with a lean budget but a big heart, the atmosphere was different from anything he was used to. There were no studios pressuring, no aggressive marketing, just a nervous director, trembling hands, holding a megaphone like someone holding a secret. "Whenever you're ready, Keanu," said the young director, almost apologizing for giving an order. Keanu adjusted his jacket, took a deep breath, and smiled. "Not when I want, when the scene wants. We just help." Filming began. No choreographed heroism, no explosions, no heavy weapons. Just a man sitting, talking to the void and choosing to stay. Each take came out clean, raw, honest. It was as if Keanu had brought a simplicity from the desert that couldn't be rehearsed. When the day ended, no one applauded immediately. The crew remained silent, respecting that invisible spell that covers only the moments that matter. The same silence that falls when everyone knows they have witnessed truth. Keanu was putting away his own chair when he felt something in his back pocket. A folded paper. He didn't remember putting it there. He unfolded it slowly. It was Lila's drawing. The red tow truck with a golden halo, simple wheels, childish strokes. But now there was something more. In blue ink, crooked child's letters, it read, "Thank you for taking me away from the hole." He stood motionless, feeling the weight and lightness of it at the same time. The air seemed sweeter. He smiled at no one in particular, and at the same time, at everyone. He smiled at Erica, at Tom, at Michael, at Lila. He smiled at Joe, wherever he was. The rest of the night passed lightly, like an open road after the curve. A month later, he returned to Michael's house. The living room smelled of soup and hope. Lila, still fragile, showed him a music box that played 3 notes and then stopped. Keanu opened it, carefully tinkered with it, blew away invisible dust. The music box came back to life with a snippet of melody. "See," Lila said, "you fix things. I just pay it forward." Michael brought an envelope. "It's not much," he said, awkwardly. "When we went to the basement, I found these photos of Joe. There's one of him with the lighter. I thought you should see it." In the photo, a Joe in a white t-shirt, hair in the wind, held the lighter in one hand and pointed with the other to some horizon, as if saying, "It's that way." On the back, in different handwriting, perhaps from a girl smiling next to him, 303. Don't forget. Keanu kept the image in the heart of all his pockets. I won't forget. On the way back, he stopped at a gas station cafe. A woman recognized him, asked for a photo. He agreed, of course. The attendant didn't recognize him, but said, "Dude, I like your bike." Keanu liked that compliment more. So many years being the one who runs, and that day he preferred to be just the one who passes by. In the office, Erica entered without knocking, carrying a pile of scripts like someone carrying burdens that weren't hers. "There's a blockbuster waiting for you," she said, almost breathless. "Explosions, helicopters, the whole package. There's also this indie with a dinner budget, but with a human raw script. And there's a debut director. He sent a script without chases, without guns, without choreographies, just dialogues, just people talking. He says he even wrote you a letter but was too shy to send it." Keanu slowly raised his eyes. His silence carried more weight than any screen explosion. "Send me the letter," he said firmly. "For the blockbuster, send a thank you, but no. For the debutante, send a let's talk. For the indie, send a yes." Erica smiled with an almost maternal tenderness. "I knew it." "You knew?" He raised an eyebrow. "I saw you come back different from the desert. I didn't know why yet. Now I do. You found an extra road." It was at that moment that Tom appeared, as always, when the conversation needed relief. "Just out of curiosity, boss. Who fixed your Harley?" Keanu took a moment to answer. He ran his fingers over his pocket, feeling the cold lighter inside before letting out a half smile. "A friend." "Name?" Tom insisted. Keanu looked at nothing, but his eyes saw another road, another sunset. "Joe." "Joe who?" "Just Joe." That night, back in his garage, Keanu leaned the Harley on its kickstand. The yellowish light hanging from the ceiling cast shadows that stretched as if they too wanted to listen. From his pocket, he took out the lighter marked with the initials JD. He lit it and put it out, lit it and put it out, until the small flame seemed to say, "I'm here." Suddenly, the old radio he kept on the shelf crackled on its own, spitting static, until for 3 seconds, a hoarse melody emerged, a blues that doesn't exist in any catalogue, but seemed to come directly from a workshop lost in time. On the wall clock, a tired hand made a solitary jump. 3:03. Keanu chuckled softly, an intimate laugh. "Okay, Joe, I'll deliver the message." He sat down, opened a worn-cover notebook, and wrote in large letters at the top of the page, "Less noise, more road." Below, another phrase, "Pay it forward." And finally, the last one, inherited from a place where there are no clocks or hurry, "Keep going." He put away the notebook, turned off the light and looked at the night for a long time. And for the first time in many years, he didn't feel he owed anything to studios, to contracts, to expectations. He only owed it to the boy who once dreamed of the road, and to the friend who came back to remind him that some debts are not paid with money, but with gestures. And now I ask you who have come this far. Have you ever been saved by someone who appeared out of nowhere? Have you ever felt a presence, a memory, a dream, or a person pull you off the shoulder before you realized you were stopped? Who is the Joe in your life? What can you pay forward today, not with money, but with attitude, with generosity? What road have you been avoiding for fear of silence? If this story touched your heart, leave your favorite passage and the name of someone you'd like to thank in the comments. And if you want to continue traveling with us through this universe of impossible encounters and very real truths, subscribe to the channel now. Every click of yours is a flame that keeps this road lit. And perhaps this is the lesson only the dead can teach, that the impossible is just the next act.